So my name is Palak, if you don't know me. And
I'm Niti.
And we have here with us Aviv from our team. He's our senior advisor inside the portfolio mastery community. And what we decided to do today is we said, hey, we have some amazing questions that come up again and again. Let's bring a few of those and help answer them so that you don't have to dig around trying to find answers on your own. So we're going to talk about those questions today. Do you want to take a minute and maybe kind of give them our background in case there's someone here who doesn't know us?
Yeah, for sure. So Palak and me, we're both we were both in corporate for a long time, right? We were in corporate. We took the traditional route of getting a degree, climbing the corporate ladder for many years, and we did that for almost 15 years. And then we had kids. We had kids. We had a 2-year-old and a 2-month-old at the time, and we realized that all the work that we put in for so many years, um, with the hope that we'd have time to spend with our family and enjoy and create wealth, it wasn't really the case, right? And we hadn't, while we had good incomes, we hadn't really built any wealth, other than our 401k, which always goes up and down, and we didn't really know what to do with it. And we really didn't get to spend too much time with our kids who were 2 years and 2 months at the time. And Palak couldn't get time off work. I couldn't get time off work. And we're like, wait, we worked all these years and we almost felt that, there was somewhat of a deception. We were deceived a little bit, right? By what society tells you to do to get to financial freedom. And we didn't feel like we were anywhere close to financial freedom despite doing all the things, correctly, so to speak.
Yeah. And the corporate culture in general is just so toxic. It kind of forces you to think a certain way, which really doesn't lead to like a good, well-balanced, fulfilling life, right?
Yeah, and we realized that as soon as we had kids, and so we started investing in real estate. I mean, one, we both loved real estate, so we thought, why not? And we realized pretty quickly that that was a great way to not only create passive income but create wealth. Because the biggest lesson, if anything, that we have learned as we have built our $10 million rental portfolio in the last few years is that the way to create wealth and the way to build passive income is through assets. Not just buying and selling assets, but buying and holding assets. And that really is the key. Okay. And we did a lot of that, and we're going to talk about the strategy that we used to do that, which supercharges a way, supercharges in a way, helping you buy assets a lot faster than you normally would. Yeah. Right? So we're going to talk about that too. But we did that, and we both retired from our 9-to-5 jobs, and we've been focusing on real estate full time now. Palak's been doing full time real estate for what, 6 years now?
6 years.
6 years, and then I've been doing full time real estate for about 3 years now. So it's been a great learning experience, and we want to share as much as we can with folks.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So,
and we're based right outside Pennsylvania right now. We're location independent because thanks to real estate, we spent a month this summer in Portugal almost with our kids. Last year we spent a month in Spain. We love working. Like it's not that we don't work. No one wants financial freedom because they're lazy. People want financial freedom because they want to do things that are meaningful. So we're working, but we have a lot of freedom to be where we need to be. Aviv, where are you based? Before you ask us the first question.
Hey guys, thanks for being here today and for taking the time. I work with you guys remotely, as you know, probably.
Yes.
I think.
Yes.
All the way on the other side of the pond, I guess, in Berlin, capital of Germany, over in Europe. And we've been together for a year and a half now, I guess.
Amazing. Yeah. How's the weather where you are?
Getting chilly. Not
yeah.
too cold, but getting colder by the day, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, cool. What's the first question? Let's do it.
Yeah. So after speaking with a lot of people every single day, Some people come to us super fresh, having no rentals at all. Some people have one or two. They kind of bought traditionally. Maybe it was their first primary residence. They upgrade and now they have that as a rental. Or maybe they have 3 or 4. They just don't really know how to scale. So a couple questions really come up quite often. I think the biggest one really is people ask all the time, what's the right strategy for me? What should I choose? I'm overwhelmed. There's like so many different things out there. And I guess a byproduct is, hey, does BRRRR actually still work? So that's kind of the main thing.
Great.
So I'll start with the strategy piece, because this is my favorite question, by the way. How should I decide my strategy? What should I do in real estate? And if you're like me, like I was an engineer, I'm all about collecting data and information, and I want to learn more and more and more and more. But I read somewhere that if information was truly power, then librarians would be millionaires, right? Is that the right word? And the problem is, the internet is amazing. These days, we live in this world where we have access to so much information, which is incredible. There are podcasts and books, and you can Google anything you want. But the problem is, massive amounts of information actually leads to analysis paralysis. And it's really hard then to find your strategy. And so this is where all this amount of information actually works against us, especially for people like us, like me, who like to collect a lot of information and collect a lot of data. And we think that the more we collect or more we consume, we think the better informed decision we're going to make. And that's not true. A lot of it is clutter. So number one is, you really have to understand that defining your strategy doesn't have to do with consuming massive amounts of information. It's all related to consuming the right kind of information. And that's number one. And that was like the biggest shift that I had to make when we first got started. There are multiple ways of doing real estate. The biggest way to find your strategy is to know your end goal. And talk a little bit about your vision and how you define where you want to be.
Yeah, I'll talk about how we figured out what our strategy was, and hopefully this kind of helps you navigate to that question of what is the right strategy for you. So when we first started investing in real estate, and we had a couple of mentors, and one of the biggest piece of advice that we got from our mentor was you don't acquire wealth in real estate by peddling real estate. In other words, you don't make wealth in real estate by being transactional with real estate, buying and selling real estate. You get wealthy in real estate by buying and holding onto real estate for a long, long period of time, right? And that was a very important piece of information for us to understand at the time. And then when he said, okay, we know that now, that we want to buy and hold real estate. We don't want to flip houses, and we don't want to do like anything. We want to buy and hold assets. And then we started, to Palak's point, we started with our end goal in mind. And our end goal was, we wanted to be able to make work optional in 3 to 5 years. That was our goal. We didn't want to wait until 60, 65 years old, until we were 60 or 65 years old to be able to retire. We wanted to retire while we were still young. That was the goal. And we said, okay, we want to retire early. We want to, and the way to do that is by buying and holding on to assets. But then, so we said, okay, so buy and hold is the right strategy for us. So that was step one, to kind of say, okay, we said we want to buy and hold properties. And we said, okay, say we buy a single family home. And that's what we did the first couple of times. We bought a single family home that was rent ready, right? We put down 25% down payment. We bought a house, we rented it out the next day, right? And we were cash flowing on that property. And we quickly realized, oh, this is great. This property is going to appreciate over time. The debt is going to get paid down, and we're going to get cash flow every month. So we were like, okay, this is fantastic. But there was still something, missing, which was that every time we bought a property, we had to bring 25% down for the down payment plus 5% closing costs. So if the property that we were buying was, say, $200,000 rent ready property, then we would have to bring, $65,000, sometimes $70,000 out of our pocket as cash down payment for the property. And we said, maybe we can do this once a year, but how do we, that'll take, if we bought one property a year, that would take us maybe, 20 or 25 years, 30 years maybe to retire.
And I wanted to quit my job now. I
Yes.
was like, we had a second baby. We had a 2-year-old and a newborn. And every day I was telling him, I'm like, listen, I need to quit this job because it's getting really stressful with 2 kids. And I mean, one of us really had to take a backseat from that corporate lifestyle for that to work. And I wanted it to be me because, I had a baby and I wanted to be with the kids. And it was a tough choice to make, because on one hand, if we wanted to continue building this portfolio, we needed that chunk of cash consistently coming in, that additional income, so we could save up and buy these rent ready rentals. But at the same time, it would take forever. Like, it would take, in 5 years, maybe we have 5 rentals. That's not enough to that wasn't enough to cover my salary at the time.
That's right. And so, we said, okay, we wanted to do this strategy. We wanted to buy assets a lot faster. And that's when we stumbled upon the BRRRR strategy, right? And for those of you who may not have heard about the BRRRR strategy, what it is, you buy, instead of buying a rent-ready property, you buy a distressed property that needs a lot of work. Nobody's probably living in that property. It's completely distressed. And for that reason, you can buy it for cents on the dollar because it's distressed. You buy it, you rehab it, and you make it really nice, new kitchen, new bath, flooring, make it really nice. And you force the appreciation in a short period of time. So instead of waiting for 5 years for the property to appreciates in 3 to 6 months, because you're forcing the rehab, forcing the appreciation through rehab. And then once it's rehabbed, you rent it out just like you would with a regular rent-ready rental, and then you refinance and pull your cash out. So the idea is that, so if you look at numbers real quick, to give you an example, sometimes it's easier to understand if I use numbers. So instead of buying a rent-ready rental for $200,000 with a 25% down payment, I would buy a house that's right next to it that needs a lot of work, but because it needs a lot of work, I can buy it for $80,000. I'll put in $50,000 worth of rehab in it, and then maybe some soft costs of another, say, $15,000, $20,000. Now I'm all in close to $150,000 in terms of the money that I put into it, but the property now appreciates and it has an after repair value of $200,000, just like the property next door. And so now I can go to a bank and say, give me a loan of 75% against this property, and they'll give me $150,000 back. So now all the money that I put into the property, I have it back in 3 to 6 months,
Right.
as opposed to a few years, right? And then any cash flow that I get from day one is just additional profit. So it's almost infinite returns if you think about it. And so that's when we thought, BRRRR strategy is right for us, and we kind of start focusing. And then one more piece I'll just mention, I won't go too deep into it because maybe we can cover in a separate topic, but it's not just about, as Palak mentioned, working backwards from where you want to be. So not only did we want to retire early, we also didn't want to spend all our time at a job site. We don't want to be 8-10 hours, at a job site. And so the way you execute the BRRRR strategy is what we did differently from most people as well. So we didn't, and this becomes very important if you're investing out of state. And we really encourage people to invest out of state because it's such a great way. You can go where the best returns are. If you build a team and if you do it right, you can do it remotely. And so that's what another thing that we loved about the BRRRR strategy, and the way we executed it was different.
Yeah, so that is the strategy, right?
Yeah.
And that is how we accelerated.
Yeah, and so hopefully, if as you're thinking through what strategy is right for you, think about where you want to be 5 or 10 years from now. Figure out, be very specific. And by the way, can I just add something, Aviv? I know I'm going a little bit off topic here, but I think it's important. We're getting into the holidays, right? And this is such a great time to start planning what you're going to do in 2024.
Yes.
2023 is gone, right? It's in the rearview mirror. Now you have the time in the next month and a half to really plan and commit to a strategy that you're going to implement in 2024. And so use this time, in the holidays, Palak and I do, and we love like meeting our families during this time, spending time with them. But what we also make sure we do is, we do a planning session where we sit down together, right?
Yeah, and we also do it in our community,
And
right?
we also do it with our community.
Yeah.
And Palak and I will sit down together and we say, okay, Palak, you're fired from 2023. Who do you want to be? What do you want Palak 2024 to be like?
Yeah. And this just gives you permission to reinvent yourself. That's what it's meant to be, right? We'll say, and this is something we've been doing for a few years, that it's really fun. Actually, we'll be like, Niti, you're fired from your who you are in 2023. You have the permission to completely reinvent yourself now for 2024. And as adults, I mean, as children, we're constantly evolving, right? We're constantly discovering new things about ourselves. But as adults, just sometimes we need somebody to tell us that, right? Give us that permission. Listen, you can be whoever you want to be now. And it's amazing. And we do this also within our community. And we ask, we have a much more involved planning session that we do. And then we ask people to take a picture and post it. And sometimes, you know how when you post it, Facebook reminds you next year. And it's amazing to see how much progress people have made year after year, because they can see that image of what they thought last year, right? And so track this. It feels so good when you realize that when you put it down and you realize how far you can come in 1 year, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
So try this.
Yeah. So, back to Aviv, but, use this time in the next month, use this time to really plan out your vision, commit to a strategy that's right for you so you can hit the ground running starting 2024.
Pretty cool. Yeah. It also really leads us to the next question. Lots of people ask Niti, hey, is this the right time? And another thing they kind of attach to that is because the interest rates are relatively higher these days, they keep on asking, hey, is this actually the right time to invest? What do we do in these interest rates? Does it still work today? So that's a really burning question lots of people have these days really as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, and this is, I want to also kind of start by saying that this is a question of like, is this the right time to invest? And I think it's another way of asking the same question that you did, Aviv. Right? Is it the right time to invest? And we've been hearing this question since we started investing.
Oh my goodness, yes.
Back in 2014, 2015. Yeah. And people are like, wait, it's been 7-8 years since the market crashed. Like, is it a good time to invest? And what I tell people is, as an investor, the right question to ask is not, should I be investing right now? But the right question is, how should I be investing right now? When we started investing back in 2014, 2015, it was very hard to find lenders, right? When we first started, there were not these many lenders that we see now. So for our commercial mortgages that we got long-term mortgages, we paid 7.5% interest rate back in 2014, 2015, because it was hard to find commercial financing back then. And so for us, high interest rates are not really, that, unheard of, because even we saw that in commercial financing in 2014, 2015. So that's one. But every market cycle has its challenges. So 2014, 2015, the biggest thing was finding funding was a very, very big challenge, right? It was easier to find deals. It was okay to find contractors, but financing was very difficult. Fast forward to, the pandemic, when the pandemic hit, right? It was As we all know, supply chain got disrupted, material prices went up a lot, and everything was more expensive. Rehab was more expensive, but then because the interest rates were so low, you could manage that, and you can buy properties and all that. And financing was very easy to find in 2020, 2021, but it was very difficult to manage rehab. But again, as an investor, you're always figuring out that one challenge that you need to overcome in every market. Every market cycle has its challenges, right? And then fast forward now, and now the material prices have somewhat cooled a little bit because of the supply chain tensions that have eased. But the interest rates are high. But again, the rents have gone up so much, right? The rents have increased so much, so you're still going to cash flow on properties. Now, when you're doing your analysis for your deal, you're taking into account the fact that the interest rate is high. So as long as you're taking that into account, if a deal still works, it still works, right? In our community, people are closing on properties every week, multiple properties a week. And so, and this is all over the US, right? And so it's not about is it okay should I be investing right now because interest rates are high? No, of course you should be investing. But the question is how should you deal with it, right? And what you need to be doing in your market to overcome that. And closely tied to that question is a question in the chat about what if the real estate market crashes, right? What's your opinion on the overall real estate market? And it's a great question, Randir. And the way you want to think about this is why we do buy and hold long-term investing. If you were flipping houses if you're flipping houses for like $1 million, is this the right time to do it? Maybe not.
Not as a newbie.
Like if you're like a seasoned investor, sure, you could flip $1 million homes because you know a little bit more about what you're doing. But when it comes to buy and hold real estate, it's a lot more forgiving in that sense. I'll give you a quick example. And I'm sorry, I don't mean to hijack the conversation, but I'm kind of going off. But I want to make sure I answer this question. So, one thing that we realize the power of buy and hold investing regardless of market cycles. So Palak bought a condo in Chicago in 2007. This was 6 months before the market crash. She bought it for $125,000, 2-bed, 1-bath condo. Right after the crash, in 6 months, the value of the property went from $125,000 to $85,000, right? So it was a $40,000 dip in a matter of months.
It was crazy. We had just started dating, I think, or we had moved in together. I don't remember. But every day I was like, should I sell this property? And he kept telling me, no, just keep it. Just keep it. And I was like, what are you talking about? This is like the only thing I own, and it's dip. You don't have a lot of money when you're so young.
Yeah. But the good thing that the property was, it was rented, right? And that's why I always say buy cash flowing assets. And because it was rented out and we were making, $250, $300 each month, we kept that property, right? And then we kept that property for 12 years. Yeah. And in the 12 years, we sold it, I think, last year. And we made, in the 12 years, we made about $30,000 just in cash flow. We made another $30,000 in debt pay down, because remember, the debt was getting paid down all this time. And we made another 35-something thousand in appreciation, because now the property was worth 150, right? 155. And so because the property was cash flowing, we were able to make $100,000 in profit on the property, despite buying it at the worst time in history of real estate.
And it was also not the best asset to buy, right? It was a condo with high HOA fees, because I originally bought it to live in it. And I mean, there are a lot of things that we teach on, what kind of asset is the best asset to buy as a buy and hold rental. That was not one of them.
But even then, despite making all those mistakes and despite the timing issue, we still made money on that. So that's why real estate is a long-term game. So as long as you're buying cash flowing assets, that it's a long-term game.
Add one more thing, Aviv. If you haven't read the book, The Psychology of Money, go and get a copy. That is the best book I've ever read. If you're ever afraid of the market crashing and that's why you're not investing, read that book. he goes in so much detail. And I also did a video in YouTube. If you search for this video, you'll find it somewhere. I talked about, what, and if you want the link, just post it in the group and we'll post the link under it. But he talks about how he compares Warren Buffett and someone else who started around the same time as him. When the market shifted, Warren Buffett kept all of his assets. He's been through so many cycles, right? Like this may be your first crash that you're afraid of. We went through one crash. He's been through multiple. He kept all his assets throughout. The other party didn't. And he sold everything because he got scared about the market and all that. Their trajectories were completely different. What's going to determine which one of us ends up wealthy at the end, and the rich people are teaching this to their kids, we had to learn it ourselves. What's going to determine our wealth trajectory isn't whether we buy assets at the right time or not. It's what's going to determine our wealth trajectory and what we leave behind for the next generation is how well we're able to hold on to our assets through market changes. That's what determines your cash flow is going to help you sustain that, right? That's what it's for. So this whole thing about, hey, is this the right time to invest? That is a way we think because we don't come from wealthy families. The wealthy people do not think like that. They talk about building assets throughout different cycles. So don't worry about that. Get that book. It's a great book.
Yes.
And let me know if you want the links to the video as well.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that same exact thing, Palak, but it's something you actually taught me, Niti. You said something really smart that I really liked a couple months back, and you mentioned, hey, it's not about timing, so it's not about your entry point to the market, but it's really all about your time in. So just breaking that word timing to time in. So it basically summarizes the whole thing, really. Cool. So since we're all about delegating the work out, not creating another job for ourselves and building the whole thing like a business, really, it leads to another concern that a lot of people have. How can I do this out of state? My area that I live in, it's so expensive here. You don't even know. How can I trust contractors? They're hard to find. Property managers. How can I find great tenants? So what's your take on that, really?
Yeah.
I just highlighted a comment from Trissa Summers too. She's asking the same question, Aviv. Thank you for bringing that up. She's saying, I'm in Phoenix area where it is cost prohibitive right now to begin the BRRRR method. Who are the key members of your team if I want to begin out of state, and how did you find them? We can go through the key members, but one thing I'll tell you that I tell everyone who wants to start out of state investing, you need at least one unbiased party on your team. Someone who doesn't benefit from how much renovation you do, whether you buy the property or that particular property or a different property, you need somebody like that on your team. And does it feel daunting at first? Sure. But once you figure it out, it's like riding a bicycle, right? And you're building a whole business from scratch. So don't worry if it feels like, hey, I have to build this foundation. It's going to take a few steps. It's going to take effort. It's an amazing, lucrative business. There's nothing wrong in learning all of these steps, building that foundation, taking the time, and then making it plug and play.
Absolutely. And, this question of the market that I live in is expensive. Absolutely invest out of state.
Yes.
Absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt, invest out of state. And that way, you can go to markets where it's lucrative, where the numbers make sense. Don't try to force numbers in a market where it doesn't work. That's not a great way to invest, because even if you find one deal, it'll be hard for you to scale in that market because the numbers just don't work. So one of the big things we talk about in our community is like, go out of state and figure out, right? Like, how do you figure out which market to invest in? There's a few things that we look for. Go over real quick. Is the population going up, right? Or going down in that market? You want the population to be increasing. Number two, is there enough diversity of employers in that market, right? If you're investing in just a town where there's only one university, that may not be the best place, because what happens if the university shuts down, like it happened in COVID, right? So you want to invest in a city where there's a lot of employers, different industries, from healthcare to universities to corporate employers, and all these different. So if there's diversity of employers, that's always a good thing. And if you want to look at these, couple of these factors, and then figuring out a specific neighborhood where the numbers work for BRRRR, right? You want to make sure the numbers work, that there's distressed properties that you can buy. So again, figuring out which market to invest in is a key step. And there's so many options, if you're investing out of state. You just got to figure out which one is the right one for you. And then build a team. To your question, Trissa, of like, how do you build a team? Your key members of your team are going to be a realtor, a lender who does both, hard money and short-term lending and long-term lending. You want a property management company. You want a contractor who's a very, very important part of your team. They're going to help you, rehab your properties. They'll be a trusted member of your team. And of course, there's other members, like you want to have an accountant, you want to have an attorney, you want to have, these different people who are going to support your business. But those are some of the key positions you want to look for. And, initially you want to, it's difficult for people who are starting to invest to hire people, right? Because most people in their 9-to-5 are not in charge of building teams. And so it's a skill that you'll need to acquire.
And even if you are in charge of building teams at your 9-to-5, you're not investing your retirement money. You're not trying to build your own wealth. It hits you it hurts a lot more when it's your own money, right? When you're doing it for yourself. So it's a whole different level. And you're also working with a different type of vendor than you are at your 9-to-5 if you build a team at your 9-to-5. So it's different, but you can learn it. It's I think going in it knowing that this is going to be different and that you have to be willing to learn, that alone helps you get realistically prepared to flex that muscle. And I always say, like, this is not something that you cannot learn. People aren't born with these skills. We can learn these skills. You can figure out how to find a good team, vet a good team, and keep them, retain them, right? Retaining good team members is also an art form that you can learn.
Absolutely. So Sudha says, how to get a hold of distressed properties as cash flow is hard in California. Again, Sudha, consider investing out of state, because California is not the best place to invest. And so, figure out what the right market. There's so many markets all over the US you can invest in. Figure out what the right market is for you. And
Svetlana, I'm going to show her comment as well. Similar question: what are good investment states? I'm in California. Let me just add something here in terms of living in places like California, Seattle, Boston, New York, all these expensive markets. Could you invest there? Sure. As a new investor, do you want to buy a property that is $500,000 and put everything that you're going to do, all your efforts towards that one asset, and learn from your mistakes towards that one asset? I would rather that you, as a new investor, going to a market where properties are $100K, $50K, $150K, somewhere around that price range, and learn everything that you need to learn there, because there is a learning curve to it, right? And I'd rather that you do that in properties that are not going to take up everything that you have, right? All the effort that you have, you can't even sleep at night at that point, right? Because you're sitting on this big asset and you don't know how to do it properly yet. So consider, if you're living in an expensive market, could you do it there? Sure. But don't start there, because it's going to take up everything you've got, and investing.
And it's not going to cash flow, right? Like, it's not going to cash flow. So again, it goes back to the only way you can see through market cycles in a low risk way by buying assets is by buying cash flowing assets. If you buy assets that don't cash flow, that's a recipe for disaster, because if the market crashes at that point, then you're in trouble, because you won't be able to sell it, and you're not cash flowing, it's burning a hole in your pocket. So I would not, recommend that. I would recommend, buying properties in the right cities, even if it's out of state, as long as it's the numbers work and it cash flows. And what states are good to invest in? There's so many, right?
There's so many good ones.
There's so many cities. Like if you're invested, there's places in Florida that you can invest in. There is, in Georgia and Pennsylvania, there's so many places. In the Midwest is a great market to invest in. And by the way,
And Cassie, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna give a shout out. Cassie and Alan, they just got a property in Jacksonville.
Yeah.
They're in our community. They were afraid of out of state investing.
Yeah.
And they just got their deal in Jacksonville, Florida. We've got a big group of people investing in Baltimore, Philadelphia, multiple cities in Ohio. There are some great areas that you can invest.
And a lot of people that join our community live in expensive states like California and New York, and that's a big part of what we focus on is investing out of state in what we teach, because there's so many skills as an investor that you need to learn, right? Building your team as well. There's 3 things that I always say you need to master if you want to build a real estate portfolio. No, I was just going to say there's 3 things that you want to really master as an investor, right? And those are 3 things we focus on in our community. Number 1, mastering deal analysis. You have to know how to analyze deals correctly. Because without that, it's going to be very hard to scale. So you want to know how to analyze deals correctly. Number 2, you want to learn commercial financing, because conventional financing is not a way to scale. We bought a couple of properties in our personal name. That was not the right way to do it. You have to use commercial financing, and always buy properties under an LLC. Please, that's the right way to do it. So number 2, mastering commercial finance. And number 3 is building a team that's going to help you scale, especially if you're investing out of state. So those are 3 things that you want to focus on, and that's actually what we teach. So if you want to join our community, please do that. We have a lot of people that are doing exactly this, and it helps seeing other people doing the exact same thing, following the same method.
Yeah.
And so if you're an investor looking to scale, you need the right strategy, you need the right tactics, but you need the right community. So that's all.
How can people get in touch?
Aviv, could you put a link for them to connect with you? Aviv is he's one of our senior advisors. He has the biggest heart. He wants to help people, whether they are in our community or not. So book a time with him. He'll drop his link in the chat, in the comments right there. And he's also if you are joining us from one of our from the Facebook group, he's also in there. You can tag him if you want him to drop his link again there. But the big thing here, you guys, is don't let all the different things that you hear on social media scare you from building wealth. No matter what strategy you choose, no matter what direction you go, take risks, build wealth, learn how to understand your numbers well so you can go forward and build that wealth. And find your tribe. You need a tribe. You need people to back you up. These are cycles that we're breaking, right? You wouldn't be here if you came from money. None of us came from money. We're breaking generational cycles. You need a tribe, because we don't have that family that's going to help you answer these questions, that's going to tell you it's going to be okay when things are not okay, right? You're breaking a big generational cycle. Find that tribe and go out and give back to your community. Once you have that tribe, once you have people backing you up, now you're the role model. Go and give back and teach people in your community how to build wealth once you're done. So yeah, that's our life for today. I have 15 minutes to make it to my doctor's appointment. It's only 5 minutes. I'm good.
Thanks so much for doing this today, you guys. Really appreciate it. I think it was super helpful and people learned a lot. So thank you.
Thank you, Aviv, for asking all these questions, and you really have a pulse on what questions folks have. So I appreciate you reaching out and doing this and helping folks. So thank you so much.